to FCS Delivered, where we're excited by all the FCS matchups, wall-to-wall great games, and we're here to talk about them. I'm Craig Haley. I'm along with Gary Reasons, our three-time All-American at Northwestern State, our two-time Super Bowl champion with the Giants, of course, number one in our FCS hearts. How you doing this week, Gary?
Fantastic, Craig. We had a great weekend of football to talk about. Then we're going to move forward, and we'll even share a little bit about where I was at this week.
Terrific. We do love to ask, where's Gary with our FCS National Awards on campus? Now, our podcast each week is produced by Seth Biley and Graham Bell. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms, HBCU Plus, YouTube, TheAnalyst.com. Now, before we get into our weekly FCS talk, Gary, I think I have the photo of the week. It is the rivalry week of Southeast Missouri at Southern Illinois. And last week you visited with Southern Illinois after they won the War for the Wheel trophy. The 92nd meeting is on tap this week. Tell us about the War for the Wheel.
Well, that is a pretty cool event. And, for me to go out there last season and be able to see the Salukis at home and talk to them about their program and, celebrate their quarterback play, which we did a year ago, I learned about the War of the Wheel. And, yeah, it's a special event. It brings two communities together. It binds them in competition through football. And, the winner takes that home and hangs it up in their trophy room for a whole year. So I had a chance to take a look at it and take a picture with it, and it was pretty fun, Greg.
Well, I tell you, in the early years of the series, 50 miles apart, the visiting team used to cross the Mississippi River by boat to get to the game. So that's where that comes from. Now, I'll tip you off. That's our game of the week, Gary. Now let's talk about last week's game of the week, and maybe for not too long, because great matchup, wasn't a great game. Number 4, Idaho, 41-13 over then number 17, UAlbany. What stood out in this game, Gary?
Idaho was just too much and too much early. And I tell you, maybe the trip had something to do with it because Albany had to go a long way across to Idaho, a lot of travel involved. But I'm not really sure how things got derailed there for UAlbany. But I think that Idaho has shown now that they're consistently, playing well at home in the Kibbe Dome specifically, and I think it could be a great season for the Vandals.
I tell you, their defense might be the best in the FCS. I mean, the numbers-wise, maybe not yet because they've played two FBS opponents and really did terrific against them. But I tell you, that's where the veterans are back. They have a brand new, offensive skills position. Right now, Jack Wagner's their quarterback after an injury to Jack Lane. But that defense is just lights out, and good to see how terrific the Vandals are. Now, maybe the game of the week, Gary, was North Dakota State 38-35 over ETSU. I tell you, Trey Lamb opened everybody's eyes what he's doing at ETSU. The Bison had to score 2 touchdowns and convert a successful onside kick between the touchdowns in the final 2 minutes to pull out this win. Cam Miller with a late touchdown to put them ahead. I have to ask you, Gary, this is kind of a wake-up call for the Bison, to really just pull out a win in the end. How important is that for a team with championship aspirations?
Well, they certainly do have championship caliber team and a championship aspirations, as you talked about, Craig. But you've got to go out and you've got to perform, and you've got to play at a high level, because when you're at the top of the Stats Perform top 25 poll, they're in 1-2, wherever they've been labeled. You're going to realize that you're going to get every team's best shot. And when you go on the road, specifically in the FCS, you better be prepared to play. And I'm telling you, ETSU, they were prepared. They were ready. They were right from the start. They were right there with North Dakota State. And it just kind of was their game at the end until they made some great plays, as you talked about, Craig, to finish that out. And also got an onside kick, which is highly unlikely. But it turned out that way for the Bison. But as you said, a little bit of a wake-up call, maybe, but I think they've just got to get things moving a little quicker early in ball games.
Well, that does happen throughout the season. I mean, South Dakota State's toughest playoff games last year and the year before were the quarterfinal round. Last year it was Villanova. Holy Cross 2 years ago, and then they just took off on their way to national titles. So I tell you, it does really happen throughout the season. You always have to be prepared because if you're one of the top teams, everybody's gunning for you, as you mentioned. South Dakota State obviously won a week ago. They beat Augustana, kind of a tune-up game. Now that brings us to our Stats Reform FCS Top 25 poll, Gary. None of last week's, top 11 teams lost. 2 of them didn't have games, so it kind of fell in line, even with the Bison, escaping ETSU. South Dakota State's number 1, North Dakota State's 2, Montana State's 3, Idaho's 4, Villanova 5, South Dakota 6. Those are the top teams. 10 of the 13 teams are from 2 conferences, Gary. The Missouri Valley, the Big Sky. I tell you, that's some unbelievable dominance. I mean, is that not good for the FCS level when 2 conferences are dominating this way?
Well, I look at it as this. These programs in those conferences have raised the level of play. They're first looking for a conference championship, Craig, and that's what they all set their eyes on. Their target is they want to be at the top of that conference when the season's done, whether it's the MVFC or whether it's the Big Sky. Both of those conferences have put that at every program as the target. And when you have the type of play that we've seen over the last 10 to 15 years come out of those 2 conferences and the level of play that we've seen with national championships being won and the such, it is something to understand that, hey, they're doing something right. And my hat's off to those 2 conferences because they have gotten excellent play from their programs. And they're very, very competitive week in and week out. And you don't be surprised if any of those teams, any of them in each conference rises to the top in a particular year because the competition level brings out the best in everyone. I love it. And I don't think it's bad for the FCS. I think it's just how things have turned out. We're going to talk about something here in a little while. There may be some conference realignment at the FBS level that could impact these programs, and we'll talk about that and how it may affect the FCS.
Yeah, I tell you, the success of the Big Sky and Missouri Valley, obviously it makes other conferences, other schools have to put an investment in their football and really, meet the challenge. I think a healthy FCS is a competitive FCS. I think it's starting to stand out. I mean, last year, the national championship game, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Montana State, they've comprised the last 3 championship games. I think it kind of stood out last year when it happened a third time. So I do think it's an issue to watch. Now, particularly those 4 schools, I mean, we're always talking about the Dakotas and the Montanas. The Pac-12 obviously is reloading. They're added some schools are up to, they have to be at least at 6 and they by 2026, and they've added some schools, Fresno State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Boise State. They've joined Oregon State and Washington State, and it's going to keep happening. They're going to increase their membership. That affects the Mountain West schools. Obviously, they're adding a few. If South Dakota State, North Dakota State, Montana State were to leave, maybe go to a Mountain West where they're kind of more geographically aligned when it comes to FBS. Where's the FCS relevance if that was to take place?
Well, it's going to shake up the FCS because these are some of the elite teams, as we've talked about, Craig. And this is a very, very, it's something that's being discussed amongst the administrations at the universities and how this might unfold. Nobody really knows what's going to happen out there in the Pac-12. So I think that there's an average opportunity for them to be contacted and talked to about, is this a fit for any of the FCS programs that you mentioned, Craig? And if there is that movement, is it better for the university, better for the program? These are things that will be evaluated. And what would it do to the teams left of the FCS? And how would those programs move forward if they're going to the FBS? At present, I'm not sure that it's a better fit for any of those programs to move to the FBS. They're at a very, very high level at the FCS level. They've got tremendous fan participation and following at their games. So they've got a great thing going at the FCS level, and the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence, so to speak. So I think that there's a pretty good opportunity for them to remain at the FCS level for the foreseeable future.
I think if the FBS opportunity comes along, it's hard for any FCS school to not follow through on it. But I agree. I mean, it may not, the grass isn't always greener, and we found that with some schools. It's worked out with others, of course. We've even had Idaho drop back down and just seen how great it is to be in the FCS. I do think if those 4 power programs, and they are the ones that are most consistent, if they were to leave 2 of them, all 4, it would really change things and make the FCS, more competitive. Other programs would rise up, be on a national championship level. But I tell you, Gary, I just don't know if it makes sense for them. I mean, I just think, it's an opportunity that's there, perhaps. But I agree. The FCS is a great brand of football. $5 million now it costs to make that transition. It used to be $5,000. Delaware and Missouri State are doing it. That's a lot of money, Gary.
Yeah, but there's an opportunity to make another truckload of money if you get into those conferences because of the opportunities ahead of you at the FBS level. But it's not always about money. It's more of about fit. I think those programs are just ideal where they're at, and we'll see what happens in the future. But I think they're going to be just okay right at the FCS level.
I think we'll revisit this conversation a lot moving forward. Now, Gary, we're going to take a break from FCS Delivered, and when we come back, we're going to do FCS National Awards on campus.
Bring rings to beach wedding.
FedEx presents Tall Tales of True Deliveries.
Just another day on the job.
We did this for love. See what we can do for your business. FedEx.
Welcome back to FCS Delivered. This is our second segment. Gary Reasons and I, Craig Haley. This is where we talk FCS National Awards on campus. Each Monday on TheAnalyst.com, we announce 7 different weekly award winners, players, and teams. This year, 2 new ones with Urban Edge Network and HBCU Plus streaming service. Gary, you go out to one of the winners every week. Tell us who and where you visited this week.
Well, Craig, I had a great opportunity to go out to Jackson, Mississippi and see the Jackson State Tigers because they are HBCU Plus Team of the Week, National Team of the Week. And I tell you, it was a great visit. I really enjoyed getting out to Jackson and seeing this football team. It's a quaint little town, but it is the biggest town in northern Mississippi. But I tell you, Jackson State has a great program. They've got great fan following. They play in a tremendous stadium, as you see here. It holds over 35,000 people. And everything on campus is about Walter Payton. They play in the Walter Payton practice facility, and they've got a Walter Payton center that they have. And I love the practice that T.C. Taylor and his football team put together. They are very structured. They have a lot of talent on the field. I was really impressed with the level and the skill of these guys throughout their whole program. And so when Coach Taylor talks to them, these guys listen because he is a true blood. He is definitely one of those guys. He's a former Jackson State player himself. He had success beyond the game, playing a little bit longer like myself. And now he's back at the helm coaching that football team. And he's got them headed in the right direction. They've been a great program, and they're one of the best HBCU teams. And I really think that this team is really built for success. And Coach Taylor has done a very nice job of molding this team. It was fun for me to talk to them about Walter Payton and specifically, and I had a great time talking to these guys, and it was really fun to be on campus with the Tigers.
And I wanted to present to you and Coach Taylor the HBCU Plus Stats Performed FCS National Team of the Week Award. Show it to them, guys. Let's hear it.
Go Tigers, huh? What do you think, man? This is a fun group, Craig. It was an opportunity to go and talk to a bunch of guys that really have their heart in the right place. These guys practice. I mean, I say hard. They are all bought in. Everybody is moving at every point of practice. There's not any standing around. It's not those old stand on the sidelines while 10 or 11 guys are out there on the field. They're moving everywhere. Every position coach is so active. I love that type of practice. It's structured, and I think the Tigers are a team to look out for.
Well, Gary, I know you had some terrific individual interviews this week, so I'm looking forward to watching them throughout the week, including Coach Taylor. I have to ask you. I mean, Coach Taylor's kind of continued what Coach Prime did at Jackson State. Kind of boost the profile of HBCU football. What is the feeling on campus now that we're in the second year of the post-Prime era?
Well, it really is great. I think that things are moving very, very well for this program. Coach Taylor last year, the first year as being their head coach, really, really seamless turnover there of the reins, so to speak. And I think he is really flourishing in that role as head coach. He has the ear of his players. He has the ear of his team, and you need to have that. You need to be able to have somebody who can stand in front of that team and be able to deliver a message, and it resonates with the players. He's telling them the right things. He's telling them the opportunities that they have ahead of them. He's telling them, how things are going to go, and these guys are responding, and that's what you want to see from a leader. I see that TC is definitely going to be one of those leaders for a long time to come, and I think good days are ahead for Jackson State, and they're obviously on display there. A little bit of practice B-roll, and we saw some highlights of their previous game, which they won against Southern. And it's a good program to really be a part of at this time. So if you're thinking about trying your hand at college football, check out Jackson State. You love that opportunity.
Well, it's good for the FCS level when Jackson State is a power because, the crowds, they bring 32,000 for the Southern game, and it's just year in and year out. It's just great to see. Now, of course, they were the HBCU Plus National Team of the Week. We had 6 other award winners, Gary, and you mentioned Walter Payton. Well, a Walter Payton Award candidate for FCS Player of the Year would certainly be Shunderick Powell of Central Arkansas. He was the Stats Perform FCS Offensive Player of the Week. Just a great start for him. Defensive Player of the Week, Sacramento State, linebacker Will Leota. Central Connecticut State's punter Aiden Clark was our Special Teams Player of the Week. Trey Hayden, a freshman quarterback at Furman, great game. He is our Freshman of the Week. The Mercer Bears was our Stats Reform FCS Team of the Week. And then HBCU Plus National Player of the Week was Darnell Dees, kick returner for Bethune-Cookman. 2 kick return touchdowns. He's up to 6 in his career, 1 shy of the FCS career record. Just great all-around week of award winners, capped, of course, by Jackson State Tigers. Gary, we're going to take another break from FCS Delivered, and when we come back, our third segment, we're going to talk this week's big games of the week. Welcome back to FCS Delivered, our third and final segment where we talk about week 4, the big games. Gary, I tell you what, we're just overflowing with big games this week. I mean, there's 10 more FCS versus FBS matchups, and there's some upsets waiting to happen. And our pick'ems, I tell you what, we left out some games that could have easily been in there. Idaho's at Abilene Christian. That's a nationally ranked game. Northern Arizona's at UIW. Yeah, the rivalry game of NCAA A&T versus North Carolina Central. There's just so many. But let's get to the ones that are part of our pick'em. And one of them is our game of the week. We talked about a little bit earlier. Southeast Missouri, number 21, is at number 7, Southern Illinois. The War for the Wheel. It's the 92nd meeting. Just a terrific matchup. Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. It'll be on ESPN+. Tell us about these 2 programs. They're separated by about 50 miles, Gary.
Yeah, it's a close proximity. Couple of football teams. Craig, for this one, I just think that the home team is going to have a little bit of an advantage in this one. Even though Hunter Simmons is going to be the quarterback, their quarterback is out. He was injured last week, so he came in and played in the fourth quarter a week ago. I think that's going to kind of give them something to rally around. They're going to have a quarterback that they're going to have to get behind in this game to win, and they're going to hopefully start early. So at home, I'm gonna take Southern Illinois.
Well, I tell you what makes this a rivalry is just close games. I mean, 4 of the last 6 have been decided by 4 points or less. Last year, Southern Illinois rallied to a 26-25 win, and that took you to campus for a visit. I do think the advantage quarterback-wise would go to Paxton DeLaurent and Southeast Missouri. I mean, he's just been lighting it up. Obviously, Hunter Simmons has been in the program a long time. He's replacing DJ Williams. That's the big factor of the game here. But I think it's going to be a close game. I'll agree with you. I like the Salukis at home. They've been very impressive. Both teams really have. But it should be a fun game in Carbondale. Now, as we look ahead, week 4, Gary, our pick'em, there's another big rivalry game involving Illinois schools. Eastern Illinois at Illinois State. It's the Mid-America Classic, 112th meeting. Great rivalry. What stands out here?
112 years is what stands out. playing a football team that long is pretty interesting. I'm going with the home team here. I just think that's definitely going to be the case, and I'm looking at Eastern Illinois going to be the team to beat here.
Well, I tell you, I think it could go either way. I'll just to be different, I'll go Eastern Illinois. They won last year 14-13, and a touchdown late in the game. I just think it's going to be close all the way. You could go either way with this one. But let's have a difference because we've been pretty similar all year. This week we both like William & Mary over Furman. We have Holy Cross beating Yale. Yale, Ivy League teams are getting underway. Montana, that's another terrific, ranked game. They're hosting Western Carolina. Tough to go against the Grizz at home, obviously, 14 straight home wins. But a couple other games on our pick'em, Gary. Hampton versus Howard, the battle for the real HU. Tell us about this rivalry. Who do you like?
It's an H, right? I can't do it with my fingers like those guys do, but it's the battle for the H for sure. I think that Howard, has an opportunity at home to get that game. So I'm going with Howard.
Well, I tell you, I'm going to take Hampton. I tell you, either way, it's a good pick. But Hampton has won 7 in a row here. I think Howard's due, of course, but I just think it's a great rivalry, and the tradition is just a lot of fun. All right, one more game here. South Dakota State, number 1 at Southeastern Louisiana. I tell you, Southeastern Louisiana impressed last week. Who are you picking?
Well, Craig, I will tell you this. I watched most all of the Southeastern Louisiana game a week ago where they won, obviously at home. And I like what Frank Selfo has done with this football team. They play smart, disciplined football. They play a great level of defense that I think is going to be important. South Dakota State, they could get bit here. I think that they go on the road, and I think they struggle early against this football team in Hammond. So I think that there's an opportunity for Southeastern to get this very, very close win and really propel that program for the rest of the season. And I think that South Dakota State is ripe for the picking here. I think that the Southeastern Lions come away with a very close victory.
Now, that's a wake-up call. We talked about earlier with North Dakota State. South Dakota State, they do have a bye next week, so they're probably looking forward to that rest. But, that's a terrific matchup, obviously, under Frank Selfo. The Lions are always tough at home, especially non-conference. I'm going to go with the Jackrabbits, but wow, I hope it comes down to the end, Gary, because that's a fun pick. It is a wake-up call. We'll see. Well, Gary, I tell you, this brings an end to this week's episode of FCS Delivered. I hope you enjoy the games because we know there's going to be plenty of them. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
It's going to be a great weekend of college football. There's a lot of other things going on too as well. But obviously, I'm going to try to see if I can get those guys down in Hammond to kind of bend the right way to get that big W for it. I'm going to be out on campus myself calling a game at Northwestern State, so it'll be back in the booth for me this weekend. So I'll be having a little bit of fun there. So getting back to calling some football games.
Outstanding. Well, we thank everybody for tuning in this week. Another great episode of FCS Delivered. We will be back next week to talk more FCS college football. Thank you for joining.